and get started. All right, so welcome to our week 3 meeting. I made this note right here to remind myself to tell you guys that typically when I'm giving you guys feedback in Canvas on something, I'll leave a comment. And as some of you guys have done just in the last day or so, you've seen that you can comment back to me in Canvas. I don't get any kind of notification when you do that. So I just so happened to see a handful of them today. But generally speaking, if you message me back in an assignment in response to a comment, I will never know. And I don't ever want you to think that I'm ignoring you or that I'm not checking things. I just haven't figured out how to get Canvas to notify me when someone responds to an assignment comment. So if you need to ask me a question or let me know something, or if I've asked you to like resubmit something, please reach out via email. And you can let me know like, hey, I responded to this comment, or you can just go ahead and respond right in the email. But just for future reference so that I don't miss anything, that is not a good, reliable way to let me know something important. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to begin by talking about summaries. We had a discussion question this week where I'd asked you to summarize a video, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. So who can tell me, I guess in your own words, what is a summary? What are we doing when we summarize?
This is Ellie. I think a basic summary is just mainly all the main ideas and points in an article, and it's not a long paper, but it's just all the main points and your like quick ideas.
Good. That's perfect. Very succinct. It's like summarizing what a summary is. So you're exactly right. It's the main ideas, and it shouldn't be too long. The length of a summary, of course, is going to be in direct relation to the length of the original. So if you're summarizing, a 45-minute video, it might be a little bit longer of a summary than if you're summarizing a 5-minute video. And the same would go for a piece of writing. That being said, we've probably all seen like fiction novels that are hundreds of pages long, and they manage to summarize it kind of on just the back cover. But there's a difference there because those back covers are not really giving away all the main ideas. They're more of a teaser or an attention getter. Our purpose with the summary really is, as Ellie said, to convey the main ideas. Does anybody else want to add to what a summary is or some other characteristics of a summary? Or maybe I'll ask, what is not a summary? What things do not belong in a summary?
This is Jose. I would probably say an article.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so like, for example, an article has quite a few paragraphs, and so summary would be basically a good solid paragraph, maybe 2 at most. So that would be my reference to the article being a bit longer than a summary, if I stand corrected.
No, yep, you're correct.
Okay,
generally speaking, you're welcome. 1 to 2 paragraphs is an appropriate length for pretty much most of the articles. I would say that like you guys are going to be reading in terms of length. You might be looking at articles that are between 600 words to maybe at the upper end, like 1,500 to 2,000. And 1 to 2 paragraphs is enough to summarize that. If you find yourself going above and beyond that length, you're probably adding too many details. I see some chat comments here. Amy put the important parts and the main points. Yep. And any information that someone needs to understand. So that's a good point to make too, Amy. If there's a detail that maybe isn't what you would consider a key point, but is still necessary for the reader to be able to understand the key points, so it's a little bit of background information, you would want to include that too. And Brianna wrote things that don't belong in the summary would be the not important parts of a story. 100% accurate. If there's something that doesn't really contribute to the overall understanding, it just doesn't need to be included. Kalia wrote here in a direct message to me, so you guys probably aren't seeing it, but it says it's an opinionated response to the story, which is something that doesn't belong. That's the question that I had asked, and that is 100% accurate. So opinion does not belong in a summary at all, at least the type of summary that we've learned about. If you watched the video, then we're looking at a direct summary, and our opinions, our thoughts, our ideas are not relevant to the summary. It's only the thoughts and ideas that are part of the original piece. Good. Those are definitely the main concepts that I wanted to get across. So we will see those pop up here. Objective. A summary is objective, and that's exactly what we were just talking about, because objective means fact-based only. Subjective is the opposite of objective, and subjective is opinion-based, which is not part of a direct summary. Summaries should be concise, as we've been talking about, and they should be thorough, right? And there's that balance that we have to find where it's thorough, but not too much. So sometimes that's the toughest part, is figuring out just the right amount of detail to include in a summary. Thinking rhetorically about summaries, because you're going to be working on your summary response paper coming up here pretty soon. What do you guys think? Well, we already talked about the purpose of a summary, but who might the audience be? Like, who is your imagined reader of a summary?
Well, let's say if you're writing to a particular, let's say to young people primarily, then that could be your audience. If you're summing up a writing that relates to young people specifically.
Sure. So if the content is relevant to a certain age group, then they're your audience.
Yeah. Yep.
I think maybe I'm asking a poor question. So let me just give the answer that I was looking for. Your audience of a summary is, simply put, someone who's interested in the original piece, but they don't want to read it. So it's someone who, say, wants to learn about the specific topic, but they're not going to read the whole 600-word article. They just want a little glimpse into what it's about before they decide if they're going to go further and read the full-length article that you summarized.
I have something to say about that. I was just going to give an example just like that. Have you ever seen one, like, if you get a book from a library, you turn it around, on the back, there's literally a brief summary of what the story is about. And
Yep.
I was just going to bring that up and saying that's sometimes how people get interested in the book before they read it.
Yep, that's a perfect example. And another good example, just kind of building on that, is if you think about, I'm sure, well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm sure, but many of you have probably encountered like a research article where there's an abstract at the beginning, and the abstract is just a short paragraph that tells you either like what the study was about and what the results were, and then you can decide if you need to read more or not, if it's interesting or not. So yeah, that's a great example. When we think about the rhetorical tools and strategies that go into a summary, it's a little bit different than when you're writing, let's say, a persuasive, argumentative type of paper. You're really looking for conciseness. And that's the second bullet point over here on the left. When we talked about picking out just those key points, your main rhetorical strategy when you're summarizing, and this will be important in your summary response essay coming up, is that you want to be really concise and direct and to the point. A summary definitely does not go on and on and on. It doesn't fluff things up at all. It's not looking for fancy wording. It's just looking to convey those key ideas in the quickest way possible, because that's what a typical reader of a summary wants, is they want access to the key points right away. Any questions about summaries? There were definitely some summaries on the discussion board that kind of delved into opinions or how the video made you feel, and that's kind of going into a different type of summary that's different than a direct summary that we are talking about now. I do want to allow you guys to give me some feedback on the video itself. So kind of veering away from the conversation on summaries and writing. I think it's kind of a cool, short little video, and a lot of you guys really seem to like it. Does anyone want to chime in and just, give some thoughts on the actual content of the video? Did you find it inspiring, or did it make you think about things? Did you have conversations with somebody else about it maybe?
Me, Kalia, I have something to say.
Sure.
The last part of like when he was saying about basically to live a life that you want to live and don't follow the standards of that the world basically put out there for us to follow. That kind of gave, like, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I've actually had conversations like with, like I said, an old partner of mine. That was literally what we mainly talked about a lot. Like, we would bring up that because I say, how can I put this? Because we came up with a lot of plans in life. Instead of following our dreams directly, instead of going like, we can't come up with, how can I put this? It was just a lot, but basically we would talk about that a lot, and that kind of brought me right back to that. And also I talked about this with my mom, and I told her, like, I don't literally want to go like on to, like, I want to take a break, like, I don't want to go straight to college and then go to medical school and then go to this and do that. And like, I just want to take, like, I want to have little break stops in between those, because I don't want to be stressed. I want to live my life first. I don't want to just be strictly, doing what the standard is and what you want me to do. I want to do what I want to do first and get to live my life the way I want, basically.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's like a big part of his message, right? Is talking about living your life for you and not necessarily following the prescribed direction that everybody else is going in. And whatever it means to you to follow your path is going to be better than following along with the masses. So yeah, I'm glad that brought up, some old, maybe not memories, but some old ideas that you had, and maybe got those feelings going again, and encourages you to, follow that path, whatever it may be. Awesome. Anybody else want to comment on the video?
Yes, this is Jose. I found it very interesting from the person who was delivering it, because even though I don't know Ashton, I remember seeing him in some shows that I would not see this come out of his mouth, and this made me realize that his profession, of course, is an actor, and so it gave me a better understanding of the person itself. To not compare his life being an actor, but as well, he does have a regular life, and I found it to be very inspiring personally.
Awesome. And that's a cool comment, Jose, because when I first saw that video too, I was kind of taken by surprise, because his typical acting roles are playing like comedy, and he's kind of like the dumb guy. So
Absolutely.
you really, yeah, like you don't expect these words of wisdom to come out of his mouth. And I think that they really hit home for a lot of people. So yeah, I agree with you about that. Anybody else?
I have a question. I didn't realize we had something on January 1st, so I didn't do it, but I did it right now. Will it still count as partial credit?
Can you ask me that again at the end?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a comment about the video? There's one last thing I want to add, because someone had actually commented on this in one of their peer responses on the discussion board, and I thought it was a really good observation. The way that he addressed his audience was very rhetorically driven. So he's talking to primarily a large group of younger people, because this was the Teen Choice Awards. So he wanted to communicate a message to an audience that was, let's say, between, I'm going to go as low as 12. So maybe 12 to like 22 was his target audience. And he definitely spoke in a way that audience related to, and you can tell because they're cheering, they definitely, the applause at the end and everything is really great. He could definitely take the message that he was conveying and dress that up for an audience of professionals in their 30s, 40s and older, and still have a really powerful message. But what's really cool is that he chose to explain himself in a way that connected with the specific group of people he was talking to. So that's another reason I like to use this video in class. A, I think it's super inspiring, and B, it's really cool how we can see these principles of rhetoric and making choices about what you say / write in order to connect with your audience. All right, so I'm gonna talk for just a second here about what's coming up, which is the advanced summary, or we could call it a blended summary. So this week again was the writing assignment on the discussion board was focused on a direct summary. And that's very simple. It's objective, it's fact-based, it's key points only, keeps your opinion out of it. We see these types of summaries on the back of books, like we said, and abstracts, sometimes even different websites will have like a little blurb about this is what you're going to find in this website. So we see these types of summaries and they have a purpose in the world. But what we see more of is a blended summary. And that's a summary that does not stand alone. It's not isolated in and of itself. It's a blend of summary, which is the key ideas from someone else, and your own ideas. So you actually get to incorporate your response. And that's why we call it a mixed summary. It gets objective and subjective thoughts. It's still going to be concise and it's still going to be thorough. I know those two words seem to contradict each other. Like, how do we be concise and thorough at the same time? Well, concise is about the words you're using in a sentence. So it means that we are choosing the best words to get our point across without having lots of extra words. Being thorough applies to the ideas. That means that you have included all of the key ideas without leaving anything important out. So it's important to make that distinction. We can be concise in our wording, but thorough in our ideas and the content that we present. When you guys approach your next reading and they say, I say, that's what it's going to talk about. It's going to talk about how to blend the summary and response and pull in other people's ideas and then go ahead and respond to them. Kalia, I could see, I keep getting a notification about a hand raise, but I'm not sure if it's an old notification.
That was an accident. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. I just didn't know. I don't want to not acknowledge it when it pops up, so no big deal. Okay. I feel like I have jumped around a little bit, so I want to come back and just make sure that I'm not confusing anybody. And I'm just going to pull up the weekly schedule for you guys. So this is where we're at right now in week 3. And you've watched the summary response video. We've just talked about the direct response. In week 4, this they say, I say reading right here, that's where you're going to read about the blended summary response, where you're doing what they say literally and what I say. So that's what we're moving toward. And then when we get into week 5 right here, that's when I'm going to introduce this essay that I've talked about or mentioned a couple times now in this recording, the summary response essay. So that's your first like real essay that we're really going to be working on crafting like paragraphs and working on topic sentences and things like that. So just so it's laid out for you guys, I feel like I've talked about things that are coming up in a couple of weeks and I don't want anyone to feel like they've missed something. So I'm just fast forwarding a little bit as I explain things so that you can see the relevance. But this is our plan, and you guys have access to this in the syllabus link, but this is our plan for the upcoming weeks right here. So continuing to focus on summary, but also learning how to blend in our responses. And so in order to prepare for that work, one of the things, or the next thing that we're going to talk about today is paragraphs, how to write paragraphs specifically. And over here on the left, I have this pretty straightforward definition that a paragraph is a group of sentences that express a complete thought. And it's usually about 5 to 7 sentences, but it can be longer or shorter. I doubt many of you actually needed me to define what a paragraph is. We're all very used to seeing paragraphs in our school books and other types of books that we read on the internet. And of course, you guys have to write paragraphs all the time. But writing a paragraph is not always easy. And a lot of you guys have expressed that, like in your writing process essay, that sometimes it's really hard to get the words on the page and to figure out the right order and really just how to get a nice, well-constructed paragraph. And I think as we start to move forward in class and in a couple of weeks start to work on an essay, it's really helpful to think about an essay on a paragraph by paragraph level, as opposed to thinking, okay, I've got to have multiple pages of writing. Just think about it one paragraph at a time. And that's why I have over here on the right to think of each paragraph as its own like mini essay, because a paragraph really does have all the same components as a big paper. We know that in a big paper, we have an introduction, we usually have a thesis statement, then we have our body paragraphs that have supporting information, and then we have a conclusion. And as we're going to see here, paragraphs have most of those same pieces, just presented in a smaller way. So these are some key concepts for paragraphs, and these are things that I've identified that students typically will make mistakes on. So number one, focus on one main idea. A lot of times I see paragraphs that have got like 5 or more main ideas, like all of this important information that is being said in one paragraph. And that does not work well for 2 main reasons. One, it's too fast. It's too fast for the reader. The reader wants to be able to absorb and process what you're saying on a slower pace than every single sentence is a new idea. The second reason that it doesn't work well is because usually if you're packing that many ideas, even if you're trying to pack, let's say 3 ideas into one paragraph, it means that you have not fully unpacked each of those ideas. And that connects back with what I was talking about with the backwards outlining. If you find if you're trying to do a backwards outline and you can't summarize your paragraph in one sentence, that means you have too many main ideas and you need to break them apart. So that idea kind of works in concert here with thinking of paragraphs focusing on one main idea. Number 2, so how to build this paragraph that's focused on a main idea. You want to express that idea in your topic sentence. And a topic sentence is the first sentence of your paragraph. It essentially serves as a mini introduction to the whole rest of the paragraph. So if I'm a reader and I look at the topic sentence and I just read that, I should be able to some extent, predict what's going to be talked about in the paragraph that follows. I should not be confused about what the paragraph will be about or questioning what I'm about to read. Number 3, then, this is the body of your paragraph. So you want the rest of your paragraph to support and explain that key idea, the one main idea that you expressed in your topic sentence. That's what the rest of the paragraph is going to do. Every sentence that is in your paragraph should somehow connect back to that topic sentence. It should be elaborating on it. It should be offering additional information on it. It could even contradict it if you wanted to bring in some opposition, and that's totally fine, but there should be a connection. There shouldn't be a sentence that just veers off in a different direction. And then number 4, this is the conclusion of a paragraph. You just want to end with a sentence that does 2 things. And I think this is the tricky part of having good paragraphs. You want to end with a sentence that both concludes the paragraph and it also transitions into the next paragraph. I'm going to show you an example of that because I think it's easier to show you the example than try to explain it. Also very important, know when to start a new paragraph. That really just connects back to number 1, one main idea per paragraph. Sometimes you can have two connected main ideas in one paragraph. Like if there just isn't that much to unpack or say about these two particular ideas, sometimes you can do that. Most of the time though, when you're transitioning into a new main idea, that's when you start a new paragraph. And you also are going to want to learn some key transition words, and I will show you some examples of those. So let's take a look at this bad paragraph together. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and read this to yourselves. So please go ahead and read this. I'll look at my timer here. I'll give everybody 1 minute to read this bad paragraph. And then I'll ask you why it's bad. Okay, so whenever anyone is ready to jump in and tell me why this paragraph is bad, connected to, of course, the previous slide, the ideas on that slide, go ahead and jump in.
This is Ellie. It's just kind of messy. Like it goes from the seasonal affective disorder, just talking about the symptoms, then it leads to like weight gain from craving sweets, and then how you have to wear extra clothing in winter. It's just like a bunch of different main ideas coming together.
Absolutely, and I think you summed it up really well. It's really messy. It's just messy. That's the perfect label for it. Anybody else? Okay, well, I'm happy to accept messy as a as the best description. Like Lorena said, Ellie said it perfectly. Yeah, you did, Ellie. You pointed out the examples in terms of jumping into weight gain and jumping into wearing more clothes. Like it's just kind of, it's all over the place. It's all kind of connected, but it's really hard to follow along with. So the one thing I'll point out that this paragraph does well is that it starts out with a good topic sentence. So people who suffer from winter blues may be suffering from SAD, seasonal affective disorder. If I'm the reader and I read that, I expect that this paragraph is going to be about seasonal affective disorder. And it is, right? It's messy. We've got some things that need to get cut, but really the paragraph is trying to be about that disorder. And we could revise the paragraph, which I've done on the next slide, so that the topic sentence actually does connect with the rest of it. So for as much as bad about this particular paragraph, the topic sentence is actually pretty decent. So let's take a look at a revision, and I'll read this one to you guys. So people who suffer from winter blues may be suffering from SAD, seasonal affective disorder. This condition typically peaks during winter season when the days are colder and shorter, providing less sunshine. People who suffer from SAD should try to get as much exposure to light as possible, especially outside, through bright indoor lighting, though bright indoor lighting can help too. Classic symptoms include depression, mild anxiety, and overeating, which is characterized by cravings for sweets and carbohydrates. This can lead to weight gain, which may develop into a new set of related problems. So what I did here, I did a couple of things. One, I cut out some of the content that's not super relevant, like having to wear more clothing or warmer clothing in the winter. That's just it's really not connected to the main idea of seasonal affective disorder at all. I also cut out some, I'm going to show you guys here, this big long list of the classic symptoms, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got a list of 10 different symptoms. And in the revision here, I've got the symptoms, I've got 1, 2, and 3. So I've just got 3 separate symptoms. And when I was revising it, I picked the ones that I thought were the most commonly known. So I can't say that I did research and these are the most common symptoms, but I picked the ones that I thought that people would recognize the best. I also moved this list of symptoms down. In the original version, you can see it's the very second line is going into this list of symptoms. In the revision, I decided to start with when the condition happens because that is a little bit better connected with this idea of winter blues. So it's giving an idea of what the actual disorder is before getting into the symptoms. The other really important thing that I did here was I changed up the end of the paragraph by closing it out and also leaving room to make a transition into the next paragraph. So the ending sentence is, this can lead to weight gain, which may develop into a new set of related problems. So I'm still connected to the topic sentence because we're talking about this disorder can lead to weight gain. And now I'm starting to transition into the next topic that I'll talk about in the next paragraph. And I would have liked for that next sentence to have appeared, but it didn't. I thought that I had a new sentence starting here. So maybe I cut that out on accident. So to give you an idea of like what I would write, a good next paragraph to start, or a good topic sentence to start the next paragraph, it could be, let's see, this can lead to weight gain, which may develop into a new set of related problems. So in order to transition, I could start a new paragraph by saying something like, while all the symptoms of SAD should be taken seriously, weight gain is perhaps the most concerning and long-lasting. Okay, so we can see this connection. I've literally used the same word, weight gain, and then weight gain appears here in the topic sentence of the next paragraph, but I'm still connected to the overall concept of seasonal affective disorder. So this is one strategy for having a concluding sentence to a paragraph and then having it connect very well with the next topic sentence is literally repeating a word or two from one sentence into the other. That helps keep your reader on track with what you've said before and now what you're starting to talk about. You don't want to literally repeat like big long phrases, but a word or two, or a keyword or two, I should say, pulling in from your concluding sentence into your topic sentence can really make a big difference. Any questions about that?
I don't have a question. I was just gonna say that I always felt like that just wasn't allowed because it was just like so obvious. So I guess thank you for telling us that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's definitely allowed. It is to some extent, I guess you could say obvious, but I think it only looks bad. Like it only looks obvious in a bad way when you start repeating like 4, 5, 6 words at a time. If you're just honing in on a key phrase, then I think it's completely fine. And of course, you want to vary your technique. You wouldn't want to have an entire paper where every single concluding sentence ties into the next topic sentence by repeating a phrase, but you can definitely do it quite a bit.
Gotcha.
This is Jose.
Yeah, go ahead, Jose.
I completely concur with the whole idea of just selecting a few keywords, because also what it does is that it segues obviously into the new paragraph, but it sort of ties in your whole storyline together nicely. So the reading will be more comprehensible as opposed to like, okay, this paragraph is different from this one, is different, and it's like it's all chopped up. So I think, as I said before, using those keywords to hook up that next paragraph is definitely helpful.
Yeah, it really is. And, building on what you're saying there, it can also be really enlightening when you're trying to write something. And let's say you've written your paper and now you're kind of going back into this fine tuning stage where you're going to focus on looking at topic sentences and transitions and concluding sentences, because that's not something you want to do in your first draft. That this is like a nuts and bolts. You're tightening things up and you're on a second or third revision. If you are having trouble connecting the paragraphs, working on that concluding sentence and the topic sentence that follows it, that could very likely mean that your ideas are not being presented in a smooth, logical order. So like Jose said, if we're able to kind of pull these words, a couple of key words from one to the other, that means that things make sense, the ordering of ideas. If we're struggling, it means that we might need to rethink a paragraph placement. That paragraph may need to come somewhere else in the essay. Anybody else question or comment on this before I flip over? All right, so going into a little more detail on topic sentences, although I think I may have gotten ahead of myself and explained them pretty well already. Your topic sentence is going to reveal the main point of the paragraph so that your reader knows what to expect. They can be complex sentences that connect to the previous paragraph, which is the example that we just looked at. And, oh, here's the example that I wanted, right? I knew I wrote an example. I just guess I didn't give it enough time to pop in. So here's another example of a possible topic sentence that could pair up with that concluding sentence. When someone who suffers from weight gain as a consequence of SAD begins to notice changes in their body, it is possible for an eating disorder to develop. So you can see my examples kind of are going in different directions, and that's interesting too. So let's take this. Oops, let's take this. Where are we here? Okay, let's take this and pop it in here so we can see a different example. I did use weight gain again. I pulled that same key phrase in, but I could change that too. So we could say when someone begins overeating because of SAD, right? So instead of weight gain as a consequence of SAD, let's say we didn't want to repeat that key phrase. We either have done that too much already, or we think it's too obvious, or we just want to change it up. You can use a synonym for a key phrase. So instead of weight gain, I switched it to overeating. So now if we take this one out, we've got, this can lead to weight gain, which may develop into a new set of related problems. While all the symptoms of SAD should be taken, when someone begins overeating because of SAD and notices changes in their body, it is possible for an eating disorder to develop. So now I've connected the two concepts by weight gain and overeating. That lets things transition really smoothly. And now I'm going into a totally new main idea, which would be an eating disorder developing. And then I could go forth and write about the eating disorder that might develop. So that's just another example of a way to tie things in together. Okay, so popping back over here. You can also have a topic sentence that is a question that builds on the concluding sentence of the previous paragraph. So an example for the SAD topic that we're talking about now could be, how exactly does weight gain exacerbate the symptoms of SAD? Well, it can lead to eating disorders and increased feelings of depression as the sufferer becomes aware of the changes in their body. So here you can see that I've got a topic sentence that's actually a set of topic sentences. It's got 2 sentences in it instead of 1. And both of them are connected to the concluding sentence of the previous paragraph. I'm repeating this weight gain phrase. I'm using SAD, so I'm keeping the overarching main idea present. And now I've got eating disorders, again, connecting the idea from the last paragraph. And I've even pulled in one of the symptoms that was listed earlier. So just making more connections with that previous paragraph as I start to transition into a new topic. Questions or comments about this? Learning to do this is one of the things that will take your writing from one level to the next. So wherever it is that you're at with your writing skill, if you are not working on topic sentences and concluding sentences and connecting them, and now you start working on that, your writing is going to be better. Just there's no question about it. By implementing these particular writing strategies into your own writing, your writing is going to be clearer, it's going to come together better, and whoever your reader might be is going to just effortlessly kind of follow along with your ideas. They're not going to find themselves lost or wondering what you're talking about or where things went off track. So this is, I would say, honestly, it's one of the key pieces of becoming a good writer. When I'm writing things that I'm being paid to write, it is always a stage of my revision that I go back and I look at the beginning and the end of every single paragraph to make sure that they transition really well. So this isn't just something I threw into the PowerPoint to have something to talk about. It's really, really important. And I talk about it early in the semester so that you can start practicing it, because it's not always easy and you don't always remember to do it. So I'm bringing it up now so that you can get better and better and better at it. And by the end of the semester, hopefully it's something that's part of your writing process. So if you next semester have to write an essay about your writing process, you'll say, and at the end, I always check to make sure that my topic sentences and concluding sentences of my paragraphs work well together. It should just be right there, right along with checking for spelling errors and everything else. You should be checking to make sure that these things work well. So building on this idea of topic sentences, they do something else along with just convey the main idea of a paragraph. They also serve as what is called a signpost. So a signpost can prepare your reader for a change in direction, like a complete change. So 1 minute we're talking about, let's see, what example can we use? So one moment, let's say we're talking about what's an off-limit topic? Gun control. So we're talking about how we believe that gun control should be lessened and that people should have more access to firearms and there should be less restrictions. And then in our next paragraph, we want to actually kind of switch direction a little bit and talk about a different part of the Constitution, right? Because the Constitution gives us the right to bear arms. But now let's just say there's another piece of the Constitution that we're going to talk about we're eventually going to tie back in to our discussion on gun control, but right now it's going to seem a little bit out of the way. We can use that topic sentence to let the reader know. And we can say something like, while it may not seem like it's connected to this main idea I'm talking about, it really is. And let me present you with the basics, and then we'll work our way toward the connection. So again, all of that to say it prepares the reader for a change in direction. So in the example, the sad example that we've been using, we could say something like, not all people who experience sadness and depression during winter months suffer from SAD. So we may have had a whole paper that's talking about seasonal affective disorder, and that's been, every paragraph has just gone on and on and on about that particular condition. And now we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about sadness and depression that are not connected to seasonal affective disorder at all. And we need to let the reader know that we are transitioning into something different. You don't just want to jump in and change directions without giving your reader a signpost. I will give you definitely more information on how to use a signpost because it's really relevant when you're writing an argumentative type of paper where you're switching back and forth between lots of opposing viewpoints and different perspectives. You might find that every couple of paragraphs, you're kind of going out of your way to maybe wander down a side road before coming back to the main point. And that's when signposts are really effective. So I want you to be aware of them now and thinking about them, and you might use them, but we're going to talk a lot more about them when we start working on the argument paper. Okay, so a little bit of detail about body paragraphs. within your, I guess, I don't really mean body paragraphs. I mean the body of your paragraph. It should do these things. These are the types of things that the body of any paragraph can and should contain. Not all of them, right? Maybe 1, 2, or 3 of them. I'm not saying you have to pack in all 5 of these items, but this is the different directions that you can take a paragraph in. And I think it's helpful. I just think it's helpful to have a list, because when you're writing paragraphs, they tend to start feeling really redundant, and you feel like you're kind of just droning maybe on and on, or doing a little bit of repetition. So this is a way to change things up. So the body of your paragraph can, of course, include supporting facts, details, and statistics and things like that. It could also be primarily explanations. So maybe you've included one statistic and now you're going to explain how that statistic came to be, or how the study was done, or why it's important, or how it contradicts something else, whatever the case may be. So these 2 items are actually very different. Including facts and details is very black and white and straightforward. Offering explanations, that's the kind of stuff that you're in this class for, is to learn how to use your own words to unpack ideas and details and explain them in a way that the reader may not have thought of. That's why reading's interesting, right? If you finish reading a paragraph and you're like, oh, I never thought of it like that, that's a good paragraph. So that can be a primary function of your paragraph, is to explain something that's part of the main idea. Logic and reasoning kind of, I guess, goes in with explanations, but logic and reasoning plays more into building an argument than an explanation. An explanation could be more straightforward, where logic and reasoning is a little bit more persuasive. And persuasion is another topic that we'll talk about in a lot of detail in the coming weeks. Data, that's going to be your concrete facts, your statistics, your numbers, research, and things like that. And then this last one, anecdotes and stories. This is the kind of most fun type of paragraph. So you can use that phrase, like imagine if, and then build from there. So imagine if you woke up one morning and felt sad, but you didn't know why. It's possible that you are suffering from seasonal affective disorder. And then you could paint a picture of what that would be like in the reader's mind. So you could go into some descriptive detail, like, while just yesterday you woke up in a good mood and ready to go to work, today the world seems gray and you can't quite seem to get out of bed, right? So kind of an anecdote is painting a picture or telling a story in a way that is descriptive enough for the reader to imagine it. So you can have a paragraph like that switches direction from a previous paragraph that is really kind of fact-based and a little bit dry. And then maybe it's time to throw in a story or an anecdote because you feel that you've had enough of the dry paragraphs and you need to change things up a little bit. Just like the different sentence lengths that we saw a couple of weeks ago, how having different lengths of sentences is really important and makes writing more interesting. Same thing with different types of paragraphs. So you want to have paragraphs throughout an essay that do all of these things, and you want them to be mixed in and blended in, and that helps keep readers' attention. Questions or comments about that? Okay. So ending your paragraph, and again, I feel like I did explain this pretty well already, but you want to make it clear that you've made your point. And what I mean by that is that you need to go back up to your topic sentence. Whatever that topic sentence key idea was or main point was, your concluding sentence or toward the end of your paragraph needs to not repeat it, right? We don't want to be in the business of like restating the topic sentence at the end, but you want, by the time you get to the end of your paragraph, it should be clear that you've made your point, and you might need to use some language to make that clearer to your reader. So something like, as you can see, seasonal affective disorder can manifest in many different ways, right? So that would be a good way to tie in the point that you were trying to make and make sure the reader understands that you've made it. And then, of course, what we did talk about in detail already is transitioning into the next paragraph. Tips for transitioning. Boy, I delivered this PowerPoint rather than slide by slide, I feel like I did a lot of the talking earlier that I had slides for. So I apologize if it's seeming a little bit jumpy, but so now I'll just be kind of reiterating what we talked about a couple minutes ago. Tips for transitioning are pointing in the direction of the next paragraph. You want to write the topic sentence for the next paragraph first. That's my recommendation anyway. So when you're going back, and this is again a nuts and bolts type of thing, not a first draft type of thing, make sure all of your topic sentences are really well crafted and in line, and that you feel like they're very strong topic sentences. And then step 2 is to look up at that concluding sentence from the previous paragraph and try to tie it in. That works a lot easier than trying to force a topic sentence to work with your concluding sentence. So it's not that you can't do it that way, but in my fairly extensive experience, if you want to have less stress and pain and suffering, you'll work on the topic sentences first and then the concluding sentences. You can use synonyms and or lead-in phrases. Here's just another kind of random example for you. So this is my concluding paragraph, which would have talked about all the great features of PayPal. So while PayPal is a great service, it's not the only good option. Another virtual money exchange system is Apple Pay. So this is a good example of a transition that doesn't repeat any words. So I didn't take any particular phrases from my concluding sentence to pull into my new topic sentence. Instead, I use the money exchange system. So obviously, if the reader's just finished reading about PayPal, they're going to know that it's a money exchange system. So I'm able to pull that concept here into the next topic sentence, and that helps keep things connected. Another is a good transition word that you can use when you're moving into a new paragraph about a new topic, but they're still connected. So when to start a new paragraph, and again, I realize I already talked about this, but to reiterate, new ideas should always start in new paragraphs. If you have an extended idea that needs to span multiple paragraphs, and this is talking about like if you've got a subtopic that within itself has got several subtopics, you don't have to cram all of that into one paragraph. So sometimes what seems like one key idea is actually several smaller ideas, and they deserve their own discussion. That's a phrase I think to myself a lot when I'm writing, like, does this deserve its own paragraph? And you can usually tell based on how much you have to say about it. If you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 things to say about this particular aspect of a key point, it's probably its own mini key point. So it should be in its own paragraph. And this is something I think you only learn with practice, like when to split a paragraph. And it's something that I will always note when I'm grading your work. Like, you should split a paragraph here. A place that you can practice it is on the discussion board. So remember, a paragraph can be 1 sentence or it can be 10 sentences. There's no prescribed length to a paragraph. When you post on the discussion board going forward, really try to remember when you need to separate your ideas out from each other. And that's a good small way to practice this idea. So our little participation cat for today, do you struggle with starting new paragraphs? Just a simple yes or no. Is that something that you feel you're good at, or something that you need some practice on? Okay, so as we round out the meeting here, I want to actually quickly practice. Take a look at this paragraph and tell me, where do you think the paragraph break goes? So first person who thinks that they know, go ahead and just jump in.
Just clear. I would say The part when it started to talk about Walgreens.
Okay, so right here where it says if Walgreens does seek better cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody agree with that or anybody have a different idea?
I think the paragraph stops at the Walgreens sentence, and then the second paragraph starts with the issue with subpar cybersecurity.
So right here, starting the new paragraph with the issue.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree too.
Okay. Yeah, I think that this is the best place to start the new paragraph. Right here is with the issue with subpar cybersecurity. I don't think it would not work actually to split it right here with if Walgreens does, because there's no mention of Walgreens here in any of this. So we don't necessarily know that Walgreens needs to be a part of this paragraph. So I think you can make an argument to split the paragraph with if Walgreens, but I think it works more smoothly to split the paragraph right here as we go into the issue with subpar cybersecurity. And the reason I would say that too is because this works better as a topic sentence, because now we're transitioning into the new topic of subpar cybersecurity, and that's a new key idea. Okay. All right, I mentioned this again, but it's so important. Do not try to work on this particular skill as you are just getting your ideas out. If you try to force yourself to write great topic sentences and great transitions the first time out of the gate when you're writing about a topic, you are going to see a tremendous slowdown in how long it takes you to write a paper. It's something that you go back and do at the end. Or it could be your first revision, but it's definitely not your first go at a draft. All right, so our final slide, what's coming up in terms of homework and other things we're going to discuss. Remember that your topic approval is due on the 4th. So I want to actually switch into that real quick just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Oops. Okay, so your topic approval, there's a link right here under writing assignments. And if you click on it, it looks like a lot more than it is. So I'm giving you a lot of information and ways to keep thinking about your topic and gauging your interest level and hopefully settling on the topic that's right for you and reminding you of the guidelines to picking your topic. And then the actual assignment is down here, way toward the bottom. So it says assignment, answer the below questions. Aim for 3 to 5 sentences for each question. So all you're turning into me is your answers to these 5 questions. That's the deliverable. That's what I'm grading. Everything that comes before it is helping you choose a topic and reminding you about the things we've talked about. And then at the bottom, I've included a sample of what these questions could look like for a sample topic. And this is worth 10 points. And again, it is due on the 4th. Amy said, is our entire topic due on the 8th? I am not 100% sure I understand the full question. Let me come back and look and see what is due on the 8th here. Oops, so week 3. Yeah, so I'm not sure I understand the question. You have to tell me what your topic is on the 4th, and then when I grade that, I will let you know if it's approved, if you need to change it, or if we just need to modify it a little bit. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not. So that's not that, so just to clarify, there is no essay due on the 4th. You're not writing an essay on your topic. You're just submitting your topic to me with some explanation about the topic so I can get a feel for the direction that you're going in. And then your grade will include whether it's approved. Okay, good. I think I answered it then. All right, so back to our coming up slide. You've got one discussion question coming up that's due, discussion question 6, and then the opposing views assignment, which is really going to ask you to take the first step in digging into your topic. So you're going to be finding a source that, oh, actually, I don't think I'm asking you to find a source. You're going to be writing 2 short paragraphs that argue 2 different sides of the topic that you picked. Because remember, your topic has to be controversial and debatable. So you're going to argue both sides convincingly. So these paragraphs should both be very convincing, and that's actually what you're going to be posting in discussion question 6. You're going to be sharing your 2 paragraphs that argue opposite sides of your topic, and then your classmates are going to guess which side you're on. And it should be really hard to guess, and you want people maybe even to guess wrong. So the idea here is that you're keeping your mind open and looking into your topic and thinking of ideas from both perspectives. Then to prepare for next week, there's some They Say, I Say reading that's due and a short video to watch. And then a quick reminder, we have a Zoom meeting on Thursday, but it's totally optional. So no hard feelings if you don't come. If you are struggling with your topic, you should come. That way we can talk about it and I'll help you with it. So this meeting happens before your topic approval is due. So we can, again, discuss it if you need help. If you struggle with commas, and many of us do. If you struggle with semicolons versus regular colons, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to go over the most common mistakes and the easiest ways to keep these things correct in your papers. You definitely want to come for that. And I'm also going to do just a little bit of discussion on how to use the IU online library, not the physical library, because nobody goes to those anymore. But how to access the online library and how to find good sources in the online library. For some reason, people seem to hate that. Like, people don't want to use the library. They just want to use Google. I'm telling you, it is easy and it is a wealth of information, especially if you're at the beginning of your college career right now. Understanding how to find what you need in the library is going to make your life a lot easier. And that's just going to be about like 5 minutes of the meeting. So worth your time. And I'm guessing, so what I'll do is I'll start with commas and semicolons, then I'll talk about how to use the IU library, and then I will just be available to you to talk about topics or anything else that you want to talk about. So I'm not taking attendance. You feel free to sign in, sign out, whatever the case may be, and we're good to go. I will record the meeting, and at least the parts that I'm actually presenting about commas in the library, and I'll post that in case you can't make it. And of course, we can't forget our Zoom credit for the day. This is a pretty easy one. No expectation in terms of how long this is. I guess, more than a couple of words. So at least like 2 or 3 sentences would be good. Just tell me at this point, what's your biggest struggle with writing? A lot of you guys shared with me what you struggle with in your writing process essay, but now you've been writing more on the discussion board and writing these small Zoom credit assignments and things like that. So just tell me what you struggle with. And this is also going to help give me some content for our optional Thursday meetings. So if there's something that you definitely want me to cover, you can go ahead and tell me that you'd really like to get more information about whatever your struggle is. And that wraps up the meeting for today. So if you have a question, hang around and ask. If not, feel free to log off and submit your Zoom credit by 4:30. Have a great afternoon, you guys.
You too. Professor.
Thank you. You're welcome.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
I have a question. Can you turn the Zoom credit into a text instead of attached file? Can you
Yep.
do that?
Yep. Sorry about that. I'm doing it right now. Give me 1 second. Okay, good to go. You should be able to refresh and enter text directly.
And I have another question. So I didn't know we had a January 1st assignment, so I did it today, but will it count as half credit or not count as all?
What was the assignment? Was it like a discussion question?
It was a video question on Ashton Kutcher. Chris?
Okay, yep, so that was the discussion question. No, go ahead and post it. I will never do like half credit. I think that's awful. You know, I might like, I probably will take a small deduction, but I think it's worth 5 points. So if you go ahead and turn it in now, you'll, as long as the summary is done correctly, or is it worth 10 points? I think it's worth 10 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I usually take like a point or a half point off for something that's coming in late like that. So it's definitely worth your while to go ahead and do it.
Okay.
And then you have until Sunday to respond to somebody else as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. Well, I actually have a statement. So remember when I told you I didn't have the right book?
Yes, you had the different edition, right?
Yeah, and I actually I ordered the right book and it's arriving today. So that's all I want to tell you.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're able to get the right one.
All right. Well, I'll be joining Thursday meeting. Yeah, that's all.
All right, awesome. I'll see you on Thursday, or talk to you on Thursday. I guess I won't see you.
Talk to you Thursday.
All right, have a good one.
You too.